So, moving now forward with the last panel discussion of the day, entitled Hybrid Communications Networks in Shipping and Buzzword or Smart Driver for Efficient Connectivity. This is a question, and I think that we'll receive some answers to this. Moderator of this panel discussion is Mr. Panayiotis Gavalas, Director of Operations at IQ Solutions SA. So, Jens, please take the floor.
Yeah, I think we're good to start. We can commence. Okay, first of all, thank you all for making it so far. You're all brave enough to be here up to this time of hour. And what I will do is use my wake-up voice or pitch or tone of it just to make sure that you all follow up. All right? Short note before I even commence is to make sure that we've seen presentations and they've all had one common underlying layer, and that's connectivity. We talked about security, cybersecurity, digitalization, decarbonization being driven by digitalization. I mean, pretty much everything seems to be driven by digitalization in the modern shipping era. So we need channel capacity, we need higher connectivity, and pragmatically, talking about connectivity is an underrated issue, and the shipping industry needs to invest more in it. That's my personal opinion as a SATCOMs engineer, as an electronic and electrical engineer, as a business management graduate, and as a shipping graduate. So I do have several hats, and I can tell you, yes, you need to invest. So my name is Panos Gavalas. I'm the Director of Operations of IQ Solutions. I will carry the weight to moderate this very interesting panel of experts who will in turn share their views, whys, and hows regarding the so-called revolutionization of maritime connectivity through hybrid communications and hybrid connectivity solutions being facilitated through the parallel use and converged management, of course, of various differentiated air satellite communication channels. Now, according to the schedule, this is a 30-minute kind of a discussion, and we need to make sure that as per the organizers' intentions, a clear understanding of the hows and whys of hybrid maritime communications is passed on to the audience. Hence, I need to make sure that the audience sees opportunity through hybrid maritime communications offerings. Before we proceed and dive further into the issue, I will request our participants of this well-set panel to present themselves, given names, current positions, and capacities. I will not go through the effort to present them myself. They know better who they are, so I believe they should start introducing themselves. David, make a start.
Thank you, Panos. Is this on? Okay. So, yeah, see me again. David Tropp. I'm Vice President of Sales at KVH, responsible for sales to the European, Middle East, and African markets. I've been with KVH since '99, so many years in the satellite communications industry already, witnessing the development from 2.4 kilobits per second to the current 2 to 4 megabits per second. But yeah, that's me.
I'm Joe Apper, Rivada Space Networks. I did start out life as a radio officer before I moved into the world of technology on the land. I've been both working on the operator side. I used to work for many years at Inmarsat, as well as then the integrator and reseller side, working for Speedcast. So I've been able to see the market from both sides, but not the end user side, per se. When I qualified as a radio officer, it was still all about RF and radio equipment and Morse code. I still have my Morse key. So things have changed. I do believe that, again, I've said it, there's going to be a radical shake-up in the maritime sector. So I'm super excited to be a part of that, moving forward into the future. But this panel discussion for today, and arguably even for tomorrow, is exceedingly important on how we set up and see communication today within the hybrid fashion.
Hi, my name is Michalis Hadjistylianou. I'm the CEO of OneNet Group. OneNet Group, beyond connectivity today, offering IT services and hardware integrated solution on board the vessels. We started back in '97, and today we're operating from 5 different locations: Europe, Far East, Middle East as well.
Yep, thank you. So my name is Pawan Bedi, and I'm representing INMASO. I started my career as administrative officer on ships, and then moved into ship management work for 15 years of experience with different departments. Worked for a communication company, and now landed up with a new venture. This is called International Maritime Services, which we are integrating all the bridge navigation and communication equipments, which are we are trying to digitalize some of the services which are difficult for the end users, which are like ship management are facing difficulties into connecting or understanding the communication sector. So that's what we are trying to develop, and we are fairly new, and I really thank first of all to Cyprus Shipping Chamber and CNS for allowing me to present here as a panelist.
Excellent, thank you all, brilliant. To all panelists, you're all considered experts in your fields, and we appreciate your participation. Now, the operational efficiency, the financial efficiency, or various diverse channels being brought together to form different flavors of hybrid connectivity on marine operations will be the main topic of discussion. From the standpoint of the ship owner, manager, or operator, I think that there is an obvious need for connection capacity and QoS at similar levels that is what experienced today on land, and with throughputs and low latencies adequate for high quality data transfer and availability. I mean, by the end of the day, that's what I've been hearing all day long, high data quality transfer and data being brought back and forth onto the vessel. Digitalization itself depends on quality connectivity, and we, all operators and providers, have seen data consumption soaring as shipboard procedures and technology advance become more widely used. In order to get the most out of their onboard digitalization investments, vessel operators want high capacity channels and business continuity. Otherwise, we face potential waste of digitalization initiatives, and that's only the OT part. I mean, modern ships have OT networks which, by the end of the day, converge into vessels as part of their ICT underlying infrastructure for safety reasons and managerial reasons. And moreover, vessels nowadays serve as floating workspaces. As a result, the demands of handling massive amounts of crucial data over dependable communications are growing tremendously. 24/7 connectivity must be increasingly taken for granted because to the communications being given and the data sharing and ship monitoring we need nowadays, we can't afford to have failures, and systems with automatic failure and reliability and reliable backups are quite crucial. So having these thoughts in mind, I wish to set out a few questions to spark a fruitful for the audience discussion between you. Now let's demystify hybrid communications for shipping, and let's get on to exposing all of the elements involved in terms of a cost over benefit view. Hybrid may mean a lot of things. Let's clarify all merits, pros and cons, and why not emphasize on the cons as well, even further. What I will do is not provide direct questions to you. I will be giving questions out, and I expect you to communicate with each other and provide some sort of constructive interference, talking in communication terms between you for the benefit of all. So my question one relates to drivers and best communication channel combinations. According to my view so far, what are the main technological and, according to you, and digitalization drivers that create value to the adoption of hybrid networks, according to your experts' opinions? According to these driving needs for high channel capacity, which in typical terms always get down to low latencies and high QoS, which is the best channel combination that forms the ultimate hybrid connectivity offering, according to the market needs, the way you see them, and why nowadays? David, should we start with you?
Yeah, why not? First of all, let me start by apologizing for not being familiar with the details of Rivada. It's clear that you're going to just close the gap between shore and sea. So let's hope that's reality. Great stuff. To your question, I think there will be a differentiation between time-critical and non-time-critical applications on board. And for non-time-critical, you will have great benefits of shore-based networks like LTE, 5G, where you can synchronize big databases that are not sort of time-critical. Could be safety management systems or plant maintenance systems or other big databases that require synchronization. Then you have real-time or time-critical applications that will require very high bandwidth but are not very typical yet. Moving into the field of not autonomous vessels but remotely operated vessels. So if you require, for example, shore-assisted navigation, it will demand a lot of data being transferred from the vessel of what's going on, what are you looking at on the bridge. That needs to be replicated in a control center on shore. So that type of application would be brilliant for a low latency LEO constellation, for example. So I see good fits for many different connectivity solutions on board the vessels.
Okay, they all depend, as far as I can understand from your opinion, they all depend to the context and the usability and what they serve in terms of criticality. Joe, what are your views on this? What should be the best fit in terms of hybrid?
I mean, the best fit, typically, you're looking at your bandwidth. What is your requirement? I mean, it starts with the customer. What are you trying to achieve? And then you land upon, well, how much bandwidth do we look to offer? But within that same discussion is, I mean, if I'm being provocative, is how much is it going to cost, right? What is my budget? Merchant shipping has certain constraints. It doesn't have an endless budget. You know, it's not going to spend, unless I've missed it, $5,000 a month for one terminal. So what are you trying to achieve and what is my budget? And from there, typically then is built a solution. There needs to be a backup. That goes without saying. That forms then part of your hybrid solution. So when I was at the reseller end, it was always a question of what can I really look to achieve for the budget that I have. And it does start typically, but not in all cases. I'd say the majority tends to be a VSAT installation. Tends to be backed up with an L-band. You look at incorporating 4G typically for inshore or import connectivity use because it was just cheaper to run it through that medium than it was to rely upon the other mediums to connect to. So there's always this combination. And I wouldn't say one arguably strives to say, I need multiple to start with. It's just the brutal reality is, at times, one simply isn't more reliable than the other. It's imperative to have connectivity. It's disastrous if you lose connectivity, you're at sea, and you're arguably blind from that perspective back to the remote office. So, you know, we strive for multiple connectivity not because we really love it or want it. It's born out of necessity, and then you add into that and flavor into that your available budget that will enable you to deliver bandwidth, as I will put it.
I do see your point. I do see your point. Michalis, I see you waving. We'll get back to you in a minute. I do see your point. It's a cost over benefit discussion, and that's at a market that is suffering from various cyclicalities. And there's one more thing in mind, and Michalis definitely comment on that, that I'm currently thinking. I mean, okay, we've been listening about investment in terms of digitalization, right? That's what we've been hearing about all day and through previous discussions. And what is my concern is that if the shipping industry won't invest or won't understand the value of connectivity at the minute, at any time or in any incident, during any incident, they'll just stick back to the old email and they'll lose their investment, just like that. So, Michalis, what are your views about that? What's the best breed of hybrid connectivity that can guarantee
I tend to disagree
continuity?
slightly with Joe. It's not about best price. right? I consider connectivity is a value. Is not, we're not all looking for the lowest price.
Oh, no, I'm just going to, because we can do this, right? We're all,
Sure, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not
Oh,
saying.
but by all
it's
means,
about
go for it.
price, I'm
Yes, that's my
saying
intention.
People today judge what is available to them based on their budget. Is that right? I would argue not, because I think the point you're going to move to, which I hope you will move to, or else I'm going to look stupid, is if you spend a bit more, you will potentially gain incredibly more savings, whether that's because now you're utilizing digitalization, optimization, bringing on board the vessel more powerful applications that you enable you to do things in a smarter, better, and cheaper fashion.
Yeah. No, as you know, I agree with you to that extent, but all I want to say, price is not the most important thing. Neither I consider latency. I do consider coverage. Capacity, I think, is the most important. Committed capacity, what you mentioned, that you be able to offer very high CIR rates is also important. The integrator, the support coming from that integrator, or the fully managed solution. Price, again, I think connectivity is value, is not cost.
Yep.
Unfortunately, in our industry, it's being perceived as cost.
Yep.
But I see the users on board, they go wild or crazy when they don't have emails. And they are prepared to send an engineer to fly all the way, spend $20,000 to fix it same day.
I know exactly what you talk about at the minute. There are so many hidden costs if you don't do it right. So, Pavan, going to you, which would be the best combination nowadays? And looking forward, say, about a year ahead. See this as a short investment.
Yeah, as a service partner, we majorly face the clients directly, and their questions are like, what is your connectivity patterns and how it. So first, I think we should understand what is a vessel trade. Is it a trade worldwide? When we say world trade, then where is it? Is it crossing the oceans, or it's only within the range of the connectivity areas? So those are the things which we have to identify. And the second one is what equipments are we are talking about. Digitalization, robotics, all of these things now. Entire week we are listening to it, which is huge potential in the future. So the owners, what are they going to choose? Like the bridge equipments, we are now coming up to IoT as well. So fixing the problems well before they reach the ports. So through the IoT, you can fix the issues on the bridge equipment. The major issues that we are right now, I think, facing is we're not identifying all the navigation equipments are very important at the same time, and we are not having a budget properly for all of these. So in my perspective, it should be looked into each area of trade and have a proper budget for each communication as well as the navigation equipments.
I see. There's a lot of value being put to the table, so I come to understand that the demand for hybrid maritime is served through state-of-the-art hybrid satellite maritime communication networks and terrestrial networks. Now, I shall categorize the enabling technologies the way I understand them, discussed into three types according to their aims. Now, the first being enhancing transmission efficiency, the second being extending network coverage, and the third being provisioning maritime specific services, right? So I also understand that there is still work to be done in the field in order to make sure that we pretty much satisfy all aims. Could you please share our thoughts with us regarding future developments versus current open issues according to the aims I gave you? So, David, what are the future developments? I'll just summarize the aims. The aims of connectivity is to make sure that we are enabling technologies in three types of aims. The first is enhancing transmission efficiency, the second being extending network coverage, and the third being provisioning maritime specific services. So these are the current aims, and these are the aims that we have been talking about in terms of digitalization. By the end of the day, connectivity serves digitalization. So which are the future developments that you see ahead versus current open issues?
It's a big question. I think, first of all, for the last 20 years, or as long as I've been working in this industry, we've been talking about making the ship a node of the office network.
Yeah.
That has been the goal for 20 years. Maybe we're getting to that point because we are starting to be able to use the same enterprise level applications on board and not being trapped in a Windows edition that was stopped being supported 10 years ago or things like that.
Okay.
So I think that's a development we've seen and will continue to see, that instead of looking at a mosaic or a landscape of 500 different maritime specific software services, shipping companies or IT departments in shipping companies want to operate as enterprises, not just shipping companies, because they're also standard enterprises that want to be able to use off-the-shelf solutions and not have everything be customized for shipping. So I think there is an aim there that you can use more standardized solutions that follow the trend of technology in general and doesn't have to wait for someone to make a specific maritime solution for it. So I don't know if that was an answer to your question.
No,
exactly,
it's a pretty good answer, because by the end of the day, it does emphasize on the fact that connectivity matters, and we do need to find reliable channels right now to proceed and make sure that vessels are operating smoothly. So, Joe?
I mean, for me, it is about the additional capacity that we're going to see being thrown into this new world of communication. It is about how the network is going to change, and one provider now being able to have a true global network changes things, because it's still very awkward today, I would say, if you have to put together a global solution. Typically, you're looking at relying upon a couple of providers to help you with that. If you're VSAT, then you've got to look at individual satellites and individual beams and putting that together and using a box on board and making sure the configuration files are all there. It's not easy. It's not straightforward. It's a bit complicated. So having that leverage, having that global ease of access is going to be a bit of a game changer. And I do...
But the VSAT integrators have taken that problem away from the shipping companies. That's
Yeah.
being handled by the Marlinks and the Speedcasts and the KVHs of the world.
Yes.
Already.
Yes and no, I would say. Yes, in that they are handling it. Yes, that their coverage areas are improving. There are certain still areas of the world where there is no coverage. That's not down to the fact that no one's trading there or no one's going there. There are just not enough vessels trading there or going there.
Right.
So it's a simple equation that says, am I going to spend a lot more money with a new satellite and an additional capacity to put it over an area such as the South Pacific, when that trading route isn't as boisterous as many of the other trading routes? Certainly when I was with Speedcast, that was a problem area. It's not fully been resolved. Yes, you might be able to get coverage there, but not at the same level that you would trading in other parts of the world. They don't commit to the CIR. They'll give you a best effort. And why should that be? You know, why can't you be treating your asset or your maritime vessel in the same uniformed way at any point of the world, and it shouldn't be that disparate?
I see. Michalis?
Certainly I agree with Joe. The capacity is what the future going to bring with these new constellations, which going to enable a lot of other applications, other value for the owners. Think, for example, insurance sector, right?
Yes.
They pay substantial money to the owners. Consider to have a solution monitoring oil water separator, environmental. Consider live streaming from the cranes, etc. All this going to bring other costs of the owner down. fuel and energy management, right? Which is today is around 45% of the cost of the chip. There is a lot to improve there. Crew sector, right? Online training, for example, right? Certifications online. You can get, we're running a company, it's called One Learn, and we're offering online training, right? But because we don't have the stability and the constant connectivity, it's difficult to do the handshake for certifications online. We're trying to find, we're running offline solutions, right? But it's also, if those capabilities going to come in the near future, it's going to be very nice for the owners. Yeah, and the other area is remote management, right? Remote access. How much you can do remotely today. I tell you, every vessel calling a port, they come in with 2 or 3 IT issues, printers, PCs, etc. You know, and they send engineers on board, you probably know very well, to fix all that. They can fix it while sailing. So the capacity is a big thing. Committed capacity is also very important. Latency, again.
I know Pavan made a comment earlier on about IoT, and that clicks into place with Michalis' comments at the minute. So we'd like to hear your views as well.
I entirely agree with what's been said now, and I believe the same thing. The capacity is going to increase quite heavily in the future, and we all should be not stick to the same old fashion where how much we are going to spend, whereas in the same industry we don't mind spending quite heavily on the other aspects of the ship. Like if there is a breakdown, I can give you one scenario probably. There was a breakdown on navigation equipment, and the regulatory authority said you cannot sail without the fixing, and it was falling on a weekend, which usually happens. And they flew an engineer from one part of the world to the another, and they spent about $20,000. So we are talking about no budget here, and we talk about $3,000, $5,000 of spending communication equipment on board, whereas IoT can be a next future which can be very easily fixed well in advance instead of arranging at the last moment. And we all have this facility, but it's not been explored at the so one side we have a traditional way of working, which is like a firefighting work at the end of the whenever we have problem we solve it, and the other one is pre-plan it and prepare for what is going to be there in the future. So we are at the stage we should accept it's a need of an hour to understand how the industry is going to evolve in next 5 years, and be prepared and have a budget for it.
So we do get tech-specific, data-driven technologies that require more capacity, which brings us to the state of making use of hybrid networks. And while shipping companies are showing tendencies to move more and more towards digitalized shipping, whatever that means as far as channel integrity and reliability are concerned, I understand that network technologies, as well as network providers offering, emerge to address the needs for performant and reliable connectivity. Now, the complexity of mixing different underlying technologies and logical overlays through hybrid solution remains a fact, and my thoughts now tend towards issues like the auditability and manageability of various hybrid networks offerings in the market. And the question becomes, how can you keep all of this under control, or at least understand the root cause of any degradation in such a high, complex and dynamic environment? And since the ultimate goal is to serve specific penetrating disruptive technologies in the maritime field, how can you help identify which of a customer's high-tech resources may be impacted, and for which endpoints, onboard technologies, IoTs, or users through a hybrid deployment? How can this be done? David, should we start with you again?
Yes, thank
My
you.
apologies.
I think, again, I would say that it is up to the integrators and the providers of the middleware to provide the solutions that take away this complexity from the owners of the onboard already overburdened technical personnel. To have middleware that is application aware, that is able to measure and assess the quality of each available link and route the traffic over the best available link. It's the job of the companies that provide the connectivity service to also provide this, so that there is no such complexity for the owner and the operators. They just have to have availability of connectivity all the time.
Good.
So I think that's the core of a hybrid network, that you take away all this complexity of selecting carrier.
I see. It's a type of question that always stays in the head of operators on how to manage them and how to address downtimes and disruptive events. But it all goes down to the middleware of it. Going to you, Joe.
I mean, it's certainly a challenge. If you're the customer or the end user, you want a seamless service. You want to be able to see that connectivity generally through the prime. You have your backup if there's a problem. That's called failover. And you might have your third or fourth that you might choose out of choice if it's least cost routing. And the challenge there is, if you're the integrator, and I'm not, I'm the operator, but I see and sympathize, if that's not the wrong word, with the integrator, because it's left to them to ensure the configuration and the setup is done rightly and correctly on board. You get instances whereby the customer will be the integrator, such as their complexity of the setup, certainly on board. If it's a rig installation or an LNG, they are very precious about their network, their cruise network, and their operational traffic, that they have an IT department that get involved. So the trick there is to ensure all these myriads of disparate different networks find a way to combine and successfully work together. That is a challenge, and it's one that is a challenge to maintain. Like I say, I have a certain sympathy with the integrator, because when it goes wrong, if it goes wrong, it isn't the operator they first look at or want to get a hold of. It's the person that they have bestowed the trust upon, called the integrator, to figure out what the issue is. That problem might be satellite related. They're going to call the integrator.
So continuity is strongly related in hybrid networks with manageability, and the teams you have in frontline, along with your middleware, in order to make sure that you provide continuity to your end customer.
There's a way that this will improve. I'll hand
I'm
it
sure
over.
Michalis
But
wants to- yeah.
from an operator side, if you build something that is more robust
Yes.
and provides more QoS and provides stronger SLA, and we talk about the extra capacity and the low latency, that's just a benefit of the overall system. But if there is something that is a lot more reliable and is better than what it is operating at today, maybe you don't need 4 things on board a vessel. Maybe 3 or 2 will even do, because the importance of a backup will always be there, right? But when things improve and trust on a prime network provider's network is there, I think at that point things will improve. I think we will see an improvement moving forward in the future. And we will also see convergence. And one of the convergences that we're seeing today happens to be within the mobile phone world, and where we're seeing new partnerships with satellite companies being created. That is for a future reason. It's not just about sending messages today. There is an eye on the future that says, combined in partnership today, whether you route your traffic via your cellular or your satellite, there is a partnership that's been created to look after that for you. So in a way, you eliminate going to 2 different sources, and you're talking still to maybe one more of the primes.
I see your point. High QoS means less need for manageability. Michalis, you wanted to make a point on that.
Yeah, the complexity is big, but you see to a large extent we handle it today, because today we have vessels with 3 different networks, right? Where the challenge is to have crystal clear accountability among the different services. what is the way forward, is a fully managed solution by an integrator or whomever. This is what we see the trends of today. But I give you another example of what we're facing today. For many years, part of this challenge, for many years we used to offer a connectivity, right? Now, most of the challenges now going through broadband is the IT, causing most of the challenges, right? In maritime, it's no crystal clear accountability of the IT network. And that is where things are very complicated. I'm sure, David, you have in your support department thousands of calls because somebody changed the cables of the switch on board the vessel. You don't have the, your scope is connectivity, right? It's not IT networks, and you have to serve that. So it's clearly allocating accountability, I think is important, if you don't have a fully managed solution.
We're going to pay.
I think that's also where we have a chance to excel and where we have to prove our value. When we become almost an integrated IT department for the shipping company, then we really prove our value.
Yeah, you are right. We also have an IT division. We manage that. But I'm referring to the vessels we're not offering the IT. This is the challenge.
Where it's beyond your scope of
Yeah,
supply.
outside, beyond our scope, yeah.
I completely agree with it. And also, what I probably think is it's the collaboration and the coordination, which is probably we need to do between the service providers and the service partners, those who are more into facing the clients or making them understand what the requirements are. So as Michalis is also saying, there is a IT related issue. If you change one or two lines, two cables here and there, and that's it, and you complain that the connectivity is not very good, then that's where the IT education or the service partners, those who are providing the service, comes into picture, and they should be aware what all the aspects are being covered by the service partners, providers.
We'll try to summarize by making a fair point regarding hybrid connectivity and the push being, we've seen a push through new technologies. So one of the major connectivity solutions going hybrid. Regardless of that, we need your honest opinions. Is it really worth it? And why? And I need to discuss that. And the question is being done from the side of a ship owner. If I were a ship owner, and if you were to pitch in simple terms to convince me why I need to invest in hybrid communications and hybrid connectivity, what would that be?
I think it's a funny question. I will use an analogy once made by a satellite consultant doing a speech at one of the previous digital ship events. He said that you could sit in your house with a candlelight and say, why do I need electricity? I can read my newspaper, I can cook if I just move the candle. Why do I need electricity? It's a little bit the same, that it's why would you need more bandwidth? I can send my emails, I can do my telephone calls, but there's so much more that you can do if you get an open, a real bandwidth connection that you cannot possibly even imagine today. I think a lot of it will be pushed upon the owners by regulatory initiatives.
Exactly.
From decarbonization, for example. And at that point, there is no choice. They will have to or they will also want to implement technologies that automate reporting, that they will not be relying on manual readings of flow meters when there's a tax on fuel.
Exactly.
I mean, a tax on emissions.
Exactly.
So
that's
there will be stuff coming.
Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. It's hard to disagree with that. At the end of the day, I still think it's treated as a cost and not a value. I think we need to change that mindset. We have spent quite a bit of time trying to explain if you enable hybrid communication and additional bandwidth, you can do a lot more that should allow you to save money operating the vessel. And we talk about operation, I'll throw in crew welfare, just from a perspective of looking after the welfare of seafarers. You know, at the end of the day, will they want to join a vessel that arguably is going to not give them as much internet access availability or decent bandwidth in order for them to be able to communicate back to home? Or will they go to a different vessel potentially because there is an awareness that a particular fleet is actually operating a higher bandwidth and giving them better availability and connectivity? There is talk about how certain ship owners lose crew because there is an understanding that connectivity either isn't there or is too expensive or isn't high enough. So all of that training that was invested in the crew member now goes somewhere else. So there has to be a value seen towards communication, good communication, and it shouldn't be treated as a cost.
So
And there will be savings to be made.
it's a matter of efficiency and it's a regulatory as well. Michalis, which side do you lean more towards?
No, I agree. It's the hybrid going to improve the capacity, the latency, right? And crew retention is a big thing. What Joe mentioned before. We see vessels. We see crew today disembark a vessel because they don't have internet, healthy internet levels. So the hybrid going to improve the hybrid solution going to improve the capacity for sure. And this is what we expect to happen in the near future. But think of, if you have a very good connectivity, think of fuel management, right? Energy management and fuel. If you increase a little bit your bandwidth, right, you can improve a vessel's routing or traffic management, right, of the vessel. You can save, you pay $500 more and you save 20,000 or 50,000.
There is a lot of value over cost.
Of course,
and
of course.
Regulatory coverage
Of course,
and things
of
you can do
course.
for high connectivity.
Of course, remote access, right? To find solution for, we see companies today monitoring compressors or winches, you know, for a monthly fee because they have remote access. This start happening.
So, even concluding, cost over benefit brings a hell of a lot of value through hybrid connectivity on board vessels. I need to hear your view on this.
I think it's a need of an hour right now. It's more than a trend. It's a need right now. So
A need,
A
yes.
need. You have to identify the difference between what is a need and a trend. So if you understand that it's going to evolve in next 5 years, we have to be prepared right now. So we see the connectivity right now around us on the land. It's going to be the same as Joe was mentioning. Maybe in 5 years, it's the same thing on the ships. So we need to be prepared well in advance and see that the opportunity. It's going to be what we call is that opportunity cost. So you prepare the opportunity cost well in advance, so you are well prepared for the future.
So your point concluding, it's a different exercise. Higher capacity and hybrid communications are about value. There could be a good window to compliance, more efficiency and effectiveness of fleets. So it never goes down to price. It's about value being given over fleets to make them more competitive. This is certain. We're coming to a closure. I'd like to thank you all for your participation. And talking to the organizers, I think it's time for questions from the audience, if any, if they're still awake. I think they are. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, they're fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
When we have Rivada, we don't